After the National Party's victory in the parliamentary elections in Scotland, speculation has risen about a possible return of Scotland to the EU. But there could be no special role for Scotland, said MEP and Vice President of the Parliament Katarina Barley from the Social Democrats. Nevertheless, the conditions are more favourable. In the parliamentary elections in Scotland, the ruling pro-independence party SNP achieved a clear victory, but narrowly missed an absolute majority. The SNP, headed by First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, will have 64 seats in Parliament. The absolute majority is 65 mandates. Before the independence referendum in 2014, Nicola Sturgeon said, "This is a chance that probably only exists once in a lifetime." But now she and her party want a second chance, a second independence referendum. And she said chance before that discussion starts again. She didn't promise that it's only once in a lifetime. There is no legislation that says it's only once in a lifetime. They always said, and Alex Salmond did the same, they said it is a once in a lifetime opportunity because they were afraid they never get a chance because of the resistance of Westminster. But in this case, there is a completely new situation with Brexit. There is a big majority in the Scottish Parliament now for an independence referendum because not only the SNP, who almost even got a majority on their own, plus the Greens, they together have about 72 seats now of 129. That is a big majority for pro-independence parties, and that definitely justifies another referendum. And I expect this to happen despite all the resistance from Westminster. And if it really comes to that at the end of 2023, for example, the Scottish government will then want to rejoin the European Union. Katarina Barley, the Vice President of the European Parliament, sees some hurdles on this path. And just saying this, I'm bringing this video, you know that I'm pro-independence referendum and I'm pro-independence, and not out of spite, as some claim, but because of personal feelings and personal connections. And I'm still not painting some rosy pictures of the future. I want to give you all the facts, and that is why I'm doing this video today, because Katarina Barley brings some, in parts more negative than I think about this, and in other parts very realistic things. And you must not work like the Tories did it in the UK with Brexit, promise heaven on earth or whatever. Stay real and make a decision based on facts and not on lies and fictions. And that's why I want to bring you information what which decision would mean. And that's why I bring you this video today as well. So, first of all, this referendum has to take place at all. Supporters and opponents are still balanced according to Barley. In addition, the country could not play a special role in the event of a return just because Scotland, as part of Great Britain, was already a member of the EU. However, some requirements could be met more quickly because of this, said the SPD politician. The fact is for Barley, the longer it takes, the more complicated a possible return becomes. When asked whether the Scots can count on being able to return to the EU's lap in an accelerated procedure if the worst comes to the worst, Barley replied, "That too is speculation, of course. But where I am pretty sure is that it has to go through all the steps that every candidate country has to go through." I said that in numerous videos, by the way, as well. We can also do that to other countries if we couldn't justify it to other countries, some of which have been waiting for a long time. The only fact is that Scotland, as part of another state, has already been a member, and the requirements there would probably have to be met more quickly. The question is, the longer the UK is out of the European Union, the more likely the same or similar regulations will diverge, and the longer it will take. When asked if time was against Scotland, Barley said, "Each year that goes by makes it at least a little more complicated." Let's put it that way. How complicated is the thing with the euro? The Scottish National Party is saying at the moment that we don't want to introduce the euro. But would that be a condition for acceptance? And Barley said to that, That's what the treaties say. It is in the regulations that new member states have to commit to the euro. When asked whether a transitional arrangement is conceivable, Barley said, "This is really thought so far in advance that there is no answer here either. I can hardly imagine it also as a signal to other countries. This is really a consideration well ahead of time. But I do think that all regulations must be complied with for all states. We all know how complicated Brexit was and still is, how many details need to be clarified, how much trouble there is with Northern Ireland, with the customs border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And then there would be another customs border between Scotland and England, so that you would slowly lose track of everything." When asked if such a scenario could be looked forward to, Barley said, "The EU has many external borders in many places. The Northern Irish is certainly a very special one, historically speaking, although it must be said that both countries, Ireland and the UK, were members of the European Union, and that made it possible for peace to return there in the first place. The EU was the bringer of peace where there had previously been violent conflicts. Every case is different, but if there are external borders, then they have to be respected. The Scotland-England case would certainly be different from that of Northern Ireland. But of course, such questions would then have to be discussed if necessary. An EU external border is an EU external border." When asked what the border between Scotland and England would look like, Barley said, "The rules within the European Union have to be the same or very, very similar in many areas for the internal market to work. For this, we need the same regulations, for example, with regard to food safety or other things, employees' rights. This must then also be guaranteed, especially with the free movement of goods, which of course takes place across such a border, that this is complied with, that only goods enter the European Union that also comply with the local regulations. That's how it is. It has to be guaranteed." When asked if this is done through border controls, Barley said, "At the moment, we are also seeing at least random checks in Northern Ireland. How this is designed in detail can vary. But basically, this is a very, very important point because the internal market is based on this principle, so that consumers can be sure that they are only buying, for example, food that complies with these regulations." Another important point is, of course, money. The UK was a net contributor to the EU. Scotland would be a net recipient. When asked if this plays a role in EU deliberations, Barley said, "As I said, the EU has not yet given any thought. I attach great importance to that. That is all theoretical that we are discussing here. If there were an independence referendum, then you have to see again what happens within the UK. Because I now know my British compatriots so well, there's also a strong Scottish patriotism. It is then quite conceivable that companies could possibly relocate their headquarters from England to Scotland. Something like that is also conceivable, that the economy would then boost again when it returns to the internal market, and entrepreneurs can also benefit from the advantages of the internal market. I would not use that as the main argument now, and we just have to wait and see." In 2017, the deficit was around £9 billion. When asked if the EU would have to make up for that, Barley said, "You have to see how the whole thing develops. So many changes are happening in the UK right now. We are currently seeing in the Northern Ireland area what kind of movements are taking place there. The flow of goods has to be completely reorganized if there is suddenly a border. In the Irish example, this is agriculture, which suddenly has to reorganize itself because this constant back and forth across the border, which used to be a matter of course, has now become more difficult. It is really too early to judge. But anyway, the EU never rejected any country because it's poorer than others. That's me saying that now, so I don't see a problem there either. But there was the part with the euro, there was the part with the border. Those questions are coming up a lot, and that's why I wanted to give some answers there, directly taken from the European Parliament. She's from the Social Democrats, so not from the biggest party or the biggest group in Parliament, but she is one of the vice presidents. And so that is a direct answer from a member of the European Parliament on some of these issues, and that's why I wanted to do that. And if you want to stay informed, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel and of course watch my videos. I hope to see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.